Hello, welcome to another episode of Things That Go Bump in the Night and Why. Today I want to talk about a total bizarre story that happened around in 1952, 1953, depending on what version you read. But it happened with a pastor that was here in America. And then he was over in the Philippines, and he was over there in the Philippines, and he just all of a sudden came across a bizarre story that he had to get involved in, and it dealt with a little child that was about, I think, 13 years of age, and his buddy, and they were coming home from school. So what they decided to do was they said, you know what, we're going to come home from school, but they found a shortcut. So they started to go on this shortcut, this route going home. And as they were getting on their way going to the route on the home, the two of them were talking, and the one guy was just kind of walking away. And all of a sudden he noticed that his friend, I believe his name is pronounced Carnilo, and he was not beside him. So he went to stop to see what was going on with him. And he came back, and the kid was just standing there, and he was looking over at this place that had a wall. And he said, "Can you see her?" And he was like, "What? This lady, she is she's beautiful. I mean, she's just standing right over there, and she's beckoning me to come." And he said that he was going to go over there. And the guy watched his friend, Cornelio, go over there. And when he got right to where the lady was, the lady said, basically was motion, "Come with me," and reached out and took his hand. And when he reached out and took the kid's hand, all of a sudden, he just disappeared. Like, he's gone. And his friend's just like freaking out. He don't know what to do. So he takes off running, goes home, doesn't tell nobody anything about what's going on. But later on that night, all of a sudden, the child that just disappeared reappears right there at his porch. Now, it was sunny when he went and met this lady, but then it was almost pitch dark when he got here. So he got home, and all of a sudden he was at his front door. And while he was there at his front door, he went in his house, and his parents wanted to know where he was, and he was really kind of quiet and didn't say much about anything that went on. But he noticed he was very tired and he was very hungry. So he ate a lot of food, and he was very tired, and he went to sleep. And so the next day, a lot of people didn't understand what was going on with this child because he didn't say nothing. But all of a sudden, a nice, mild-mannered kid gets to school, and all of a sudden he's enthusiastic about martial arts, and he wants to fight people, and he was doing a pretty good job at it. So he went from being normal, at raising up, and then all of a sudden now he was starting to want to fight people with karate and everything else. But this lady just kept on intervening in his life. I mean, it was at one point that this lady showed up while he was in class, and a teacher was teaching a class and called the kid up to solve a problem in front of the class on the chalkboard. And so when he went up, all of a sudden, the next thing you know, this lady appears, but nobody else, I don't know if nobody else could see him, but all of a sudden he just disappears, like right in the middle of the classroom in front of everybody. And everybody was like freaking out. It upset the teacher so bad that she resigned that day. She figured, I've been in school teaching all my life, but I'm not going to deal with this. And so that teacher retired right on the spot after that happened. Now, I imagine that would be kind of nerve-wracking. All of a sudden, you're in class teaching, and the next thing you know, one of your students just disappears right in front of you, and you have no idea where they are. And they didn't know where it was. And so, of course, he'd come back, he'd go back home, and there was times that things would be later on, but they started to really get problems with it because the kid started, like, the dad would come home and try to correct him, and the kid would growl at him, lash out at him, would do all sorts of things. And then the father thought, my kid must be really rebellious or doing something. And he would actually nail the windows shut. He would nail the windows shut so nobody could get out. And then all of a sudden, he'd wake up in the middle of the night, go check on his kid. He'd be sleeping in bed, nice and neat. But he'd wake up in the morning and the kid would be gone. But there was no way he could have gotten out because he had nailed all the windows shut and was pulling them out. And the kid started talking about things like this lady would show up and then they would disappear. and they'd be gone sometimes for 3 days. And they'd ask him, well, what you been doing? And he would tell them, well, we went to a movie, we went out to eat, we went over to this other place, and all this other stuff like that there, and said that just doing stuff like that, just being gone. And nobody knew where he was, and they thought it was kind of funny. More and more, he's getting rebellious, but it's taking a toll on him. He's getting more and more tired. He's getting more and more physically drained. He's getting to the point where he can't sleep because this entity now is there all the time with him. He wakes up in the middle of the night, it's in the bed with him. All of a sudden, he goes somewhere else, and it's there. And he says, like, he would try not to say anything or do anything, but he couldn't help it. Once that entity spoke to him and said, come, and touched him, and he'd be off, and they'd be off out in the world. Bizarre stuff that would happen like that. So the father was very concerning about it. But then all of a sudden, he ran into another minister. It was happened to be a Methodist minister that came over to his house, and they talked. And the child showed up, and the kid, when he showed up, he looked at that minister and he wanted to run, but the minister just stared at him for a little while. And he was like, something wrong like that. He said, your boy needs to be prayed over. And he said, there's something wrong with him. And the father was like, oh, thank God, maybe we'll get some relief. And so what happened was, right after that, he went to go to, he said, I got a friend that can help with this situation. And that friend just happened to be, now stop and think about this, an American pastor that was over there in about 1952, 53, and in Manila, down in the Philippines. And his name happened to be Lester Summerall. Now, Lester Summerall became a famous pastor here in America, not only on his biblical end-time prophecies, but also as a person that had dealt with demons, that had seen it, dealt a lot with it, and been in a lot of exorcisms where some crazy stuff would happen while he was speaking. And so Lester Summerall came over and he did all the interviews, talked to the people, found out everything that was going on, and got eyewitnesses that had taken place. He even had another minister come over and do the same thing so that there would be a validation that he wasn't just making this stuff up. And finally, and the kid was there. And so finally, Lester Summerall went over to the man's house, sat down with the little boy, and they started to pray. He prayed over him and just broke the power of the devil. And so the kid got totally set free from that entity. That entity had to leave and could not bother the child no more. And so I don't know where he's at today, but they said the kid became a good student, productive, and everything else like that. But he had his whole life got saved. And so I'm just telling you some of the things. What do you think about stuff like that? Write it down in the comments. Maybe you've experienced something like that. Or maybe you've just seen stuff. I know that it's possible that in the realm of the demonic that spirits can move around, move objects around, apports they call them, and all of a sudden stones would just fall. I mean, the famous thing right down here in Tennessee, up in Adams, Tennessee, the Bell Witch would manifest hazelnuts for the mother of the house because she liked hazelnuts, and they just fall right out of the sky when stuff like that was going on. So there's a lot that's happening that's around there. So I thought I'd just kind of go over with y'all for a second on this bizarre story that maybe you'd like it, and drum up some conversation. Let me know how you feel about it. Write down in there, because hey, I've never experienced, nor have I ever seen anybody disappear on my own like that. But, there's a lot of stuff out there that happens in the realm of darkness that we're just not necessarily privy. I said that one of the biggest things in the church world today is our logical thinking brains trying to think about the opposition to the paranormal, because the paranormal will assault our logical thinking brains in a lot of types of things where all of a sudden we become more apt to say, deny something. Oh, it was a crack under the door that blew the wind that did this, and we do everything in our power to discount the supernatural when it takes place. But make sure that here, like in America, it's becoming more and more of a reality. But in a lot of these third world countries where you have voodoo doctors and you have people that are deep into the arts, they do a lot of wild and crazy things that would just totally blow a lot of people away if they ever thought about it or knew about it. So let me know what you think about this story. If you like it, hey, please hit that, mash that thumbs up button, subscribe, and just listen. I hope this was an interesting story for you. I hope that it opened up your eyes. But the main takeaway out of all of this was that there is victory in Jesus, that it was in the power of Jesus' name that this child was set free. Lester Summerall was a devout Christian, and he knew his authority, and he prayed, and all that stuff broke away. And it was fairly easy at the way that had happened. So just something to think about. And hey, you all have a great day, be blessed, and let me know what you think. And I'll talk to you on our next episode. Bye.